the law limits freedom of speech, if you bring a case to the Supreme Court will presume that it is unconstitutional. That is my position. Otherwise, there is no point in the language, no law shall be passed abridging so-and-so. Yan ang kung minsan hindi napapansin ng ating mga abogado o mga nag-aaral ng batas. Akala nila lahat ng laws are presumed to be constitutional. Hindi totoo yun. That is the general rule. The exception is when the law seeks to limit free speech. Then the law either has no presumption of constitutionality or unconstitutionality, or in the extreme, the law is presumed to be unconstitutional. I prefer to view that law as unconstitutional at the start, so that the burden of proof is on the lawmaker who ordered that law. The Cybercrime Act is the law that dangerously limits the growth of the marketplace of ideas. Therefore, it is presumed to be unconstitutional. But in addition, the law is unconstitutional because it uses language that is overbroad and language that is too vague. In other words, it violates what we call in constitutional law the overbreadth doctrine and the vagueness doctrine. What two doctrines? Overbreadth and vagueness. What two doctrines? Overbreadth and vagueness. Now I will explain what is the meaning. The overbreadth doctrine holds that if a law is so broadly written that it deters free expression, then the Supreme Court will strike it down on its face because of its chilling effect. Ibig sabihin, if you try to limit cyber activities, particularly cyber literature or cyber text or any kind of data or information, if you try and limit that by means of a law, but your law is not well written, and it covers so many activities, na parang takot ka na galawin ang computer mo, baka mamaya may kasalanan ka pala sa ilalim ng batas, masyado kasi siyang broad, then that law is unconstitutional because it produces a chilling effect on the public. Ayaw na nila magsalita dahil mamaya hindi nila intindi. Dahil sa dami ng listahan din ng mga bawal, natakot na sila. Meron ng chilling effect. That is the overbreadth doctrine. Hindi pa yan masyadong kilala sa ating bansa. Pero sa libro ko, nakalagay yung mga doktrina na iyan, and in one case, the Supreme Court adopted these doctrines. The vagueness doctrine refers to a law that provides a punishment without specifying what conduct is punishable, and therefore the law is void because it violates due process. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong batas na sabi niya, itong mga gawain na ito, labag sa batas. Pero hindi naman niya dinidescribe exactly kung anong ginagawa mo. Halimbawa, sabihin lang niya, computer abuse, computer misuse, credit card fraud. Anong ibig sabihin ng mga iyon? That is too vague. So that law becomes unconstitutional because it violates the vagueness doctrine. To summarize, the Cybercrime Act is unconstitutional because it uses language that is too broad and it uses language that is too vague. To put it in another way, this law is unconstitutional because it violates the overbreadth doctrine and the vagueness doctrine. Among the provisions of the Cybercrime Act that are too broad or too vague are Section 4, Paragraph C of Paragraph 4. It makes libel a cybercrime if committed online. Kung magbatikos ka, libel yun. Kung magbatikos ka, halimbawa sa Twitter or sa Facebook or other social media outlets, that's already libel. Section 5. It punishes any person who aids or abets the commission of any cybercrime, even if it is only through Facebook or Twitter. Ibig sabihin, kung may nabasa ka dyan sa internet at nagustuhan mo, dahil batikos nga sa gobyerno o sa isang abusadong opisyal, tapos ni-retweet mo lang, o kaya by any other method, you send it to have a more expanded audience, then you're aiding and committing, and you'll therefore be guilty under the Cybercrime Act. Eh kung may marinig ka sa palengke, at inulit mo, na batikos kung kanino man, at inulit mo, hindi ka naman guilty ng libel Bakit sa ating Cybercrime Act? Iyan, Simply repeating things. Nag-comment ka, nag-like ka, nag-share ka, guilty ka na. Because you're aiding and abetting. Pwedeng i-interpret yan in that way. That is why I'm saying it is two-way. Sabihin mo kung ano bang ibig mo talagang binabawal dyan. You mean just to retweet it? Just to comment on it? Just to share it? Just to put like on it? That is why I insist that the law should be struck down as unconstitutional. Section 6, it adopts the entire penal code. Ang sabi ng batas natin ngayon, kung ano man yung krimen sa ating penal code, krimen din yon. But the penalty shall be 1 degree higher. Eh bakit kung mag-libel ka, 4 years lang ang penalty mo? Bakit kung sa internet mo gagawin, penalty mo 1 degree higher, let's say maybe 6 years? Bakit ganun? Anong diferensya sa real life at sa virtual life? What is the difference? Libel is libel anywhere, so the penalty should be the same. In fact, there are some people who think that when you commit libel, if you are charged and found guilty, your penalty should only be a fine. You should only be made to pay the other party, but you should not go to jail because you want to protect free speech. Ako nga, simulang pumasok ko sa politika, sarik-sarik ng sinungaling at chismis at intrigang inabot ko. Kaya lang, basta may sinabi sila, sinasabihan ko lang, at ikaw rin, double. Section 7, it makes the same act punishable, both under the Penal Code and the Cybercrime Act. Ang ibig niyang sabihin, isa lang ang ginawa mong mali, pero pwede kang i-prosecute both under the Penal Code and then under the Cybercrime Act. So for the same act, you can be punished 2 times. That is a violation of the so-called double jeopardy prohibition in our Constitution. And finally, Section 19. It authorizes the Department of Justice to restrict or block access to computer data which is found to be prima facie violative of the new law. Section 19 is so-called takedown clause. Kung nagbasa lang pala sa body there, the Department of Justice, at sa tingin niya, masama yon, lalo na kung gagamitin niyang clause, it endangers national security. Or even worse, if it says, it endangers public interest. Ibig mo sabihin, even without going to court, even without any evidence, pwede lang niya sukat i-block ang access sa iyong computer data. What kind of provision is that? It violates our sense of justice. Under the Due Process Clause, no person shall be held accountable without notice or hearing. Biro mo, wala kang notisya, wala kang paglilitis, hindi ka man narinig, basta sukat niya i-block. That Section 19 is the most dangerous provision of all. For these reasons, I predict that the Supreme Court will strike down the Cybercrime Act as unconstitutional. Otherwise, it will be a black day for freedom of speech in this country. I have finished with the Cybercrime Act. Now I'm going to inflict on you the punishment of listening to me on economics and business. I'm trying very hard to use everyday language so that we'll all understand each other. Because business and economics, although they're one of my favorite topics, is a very technical subject. My speech here is entitled, How to Fix the Philippine Economy. Palagi na lang ganyan ang istorya ng ating bansa. Kailangan lumabas tayo ng ating bansa para sumikat tayo masenso. Kung dito ka lang, wala kang mangyayari sa iyo. Malakad ka lang mamaya Na-hold up ka, na-kidnap ka, na wala kang kasalanan. Naalala ko tuloy, when I was very young, I became an RTC judge in Quezon City. I was the youngest RTC judge in the entire Philippines. And one time I was trying a case of robbery. And the accused was on the witness stand. Sabi ng abogadong kontra niya, saan ka nang hold up ka? Saan ka nakaupo doon sa loob ng bus nang tumayo ka nang hold up ka? Sabi ng akusado, hindi naman ako hold upper eh. Pickpocket lang ako. Yan ang problema sa ating bansa. Parang wala tayong gobyerno, kanya-kanya na lang sa kagustuhan nila, gagawa nila, mga personada nila, hala. Mas, alam mo ba, para magpulis ka, kailangan may bachelor's degree ka? Did you know that? You cannot be a policeman or a policewoman unless you have a bachelor's degree. Pero pwede kang tumakbong presidente ng Pilipinas o senador ng Pilipinas na hindi ka nakatapos ng college. Hindi ka man kailangan pagtapos ng high school. Ganon ang ating batas. Ano class? Wow! Compared to our ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, compared to our ASEAN 5 neighboring countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, the Philippines is one of the poorest performing countries in terms of governance. And dami palang marunong dyan sa ating Senado halimbawa o kaya sa ating House of Representatives. Bakit tayo ganun? One of the poorest performing countries in terms of governance. Di mga gago yan sila? O kaya magnanakaw ng pera? O kaya magnanakaw na gago? Things speak for themselves. By their fruit you shall know them. You find that in the Bible. Pagkatapos, di pa sila kontento. Lahat ng graduated na, hindi na sila pwedeng tumakbo dahil sa ilalim ng batas, pwede kang tumakbo 2 beses lamang, tapos hindi ka na pwede. Mag-antay ka ng 3 years, tapos pwede ka na tumakbo muli. Mga anak,